In this video, I talked to Yuri, the founder of HealthPreneur, who helped coaches in the health and fitness space grow a thriving online business. He has been in online business for years and years. He knows how to start, scale, and grow a business up to the $1 million plus mark. He's been featured in Forbes, the Dr. Oz Show, New York Times, Entrepreneur, Money Magazine, all sorts of publications. Needless to say, he knows his way around online business. He's just about to tell you a bit more about why you should listen to him, and really you should. I don't know if you've ever heard that expression that if you want to learn and grow at something, then find people who have done what you want to do and learn from them. This is that sort of interview. So check it out. G'day Yuri, welcome to the Love Work at Home YouTube channel. How are you?
I am great, Rowan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I mentioned a couple of things in the introduction just now, but I am, let's say for example, I am a Love Work at Home subscriber to the YouTube channel, of course. Just like Rowan was years ago, I got stuck in my job. I've started an online business. I am growing it, or you know, I'm somewhere in that realm. Why should I listen to you, Yuri? What have you, tell me.
Well, totally. I mean, first and foremost, if you guys are not subscribed to this channel, that's the first step. And then the second step, why you should listen to me, is that I've been online since 2005. So I've been around for a very, very long period of time. And what that means is I've been, and I'm not just like been around, but I've actually made a lot of mistakes and have enjoyed a lot of success by learning from those mistakes. I built two companies to multiple seven figures, one in the to the consumer space, one that's more B2B, which is where I focus now. And I've done everything you can possibly think of other than FBA, Amazon type of stuff. So everything from supplements, products, info, courses, launches, summits, New York Times best-selling books, high ticket coaching. I've done all of it. A lot of it very well, some of it not so much, but I've learned a lot along the way, which has given me some really interesting perspectives that I think at least my clients really appreciate. So yeah, in my previous business, helped 500,000 customers to better health. In our current business, HealthPreneur, we've helped more than 1,200 health professionals build their businesses online, generating more than $217 million in revenue and growing. And yeah, I think I'm really awesome at what I do without tooting my own horn. So
that's excellent. No,
yeah,
that's
why it's probably a good idea to listen in.
That's fantastic. That's what I was looking for. All right. So speaking of that wealth of knowledge and wisdom, can you tell us the 5 truths about starting an online business that no one is telling you?
Yeah, totally. Well, I'll share. The first one is building an online business is, I wouldn't say infinitely, because that's not the right word, but much harder than a brick and mortar business. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, visibility is a very important component of success in business. It's not the best product that wins, it's the best known product. If we look at any type of business, you know, whether it's a restaurant or a hair salon or a gym, a brick and mortar facility, you can walk down the street and you can see it.
Yep.
That doesn't happen online. Like, there are more than 1 trillion pages on Google, and the likelihood that any of our websites, unless we devote a tremendous amount of time and energy and resources to growing the SEO of that site, is never going to get found. Mm-hmm. It's becoming more and more competitive, more and more challenging for the everyday, business like us to compete with the very, very, very big companies like the WebMDs, at least in the health space, or, the Forbes.coms, et cetera. So visibility is a big thing. So the challenge is recognizing that if you're going to build an online presence, if you're going to build an online business, recognize that right out of the gates, you're up against the 8 ball. It's going to be harder for people to find you than if you just had a store or a gym or a physical location.
For sure.
Now, that's the first thing. I mean that you shouldn't do it. Definitely, if you have a vision for doing great things and big things, having a presence online and building a business online is just, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. But you have to be okay with the journey, which is going to be full of ups and downs, but the trend is generally on the up and up. Yep. If you do things properly. Yep. The second component to that first truth there is trust is a very, very important thing you have to build with your audience online. when you walk into someone's physical establishment, you can shake their hand, well, at least normally before all this, you can see them in person. You build that trust very quickly. And that's not something that happens online. When we deal with people online, especially if we're on the phone or if we come across someone's website, there's a lot of skepticism. And I think part of that skepticism is still because a lot of people don't understand how businesses run online. They're like, well, you sell stuff on Amazon or whatever. Like, this is like, they don't really understand it. So they think that people are going to scam them, take their credit card information and go shopping. Like, there's just that's there. And it takes more time to build that trust. And that's why having a YouTube channel like this one is so great. Again, it takes time to build it, but it is a really great way of building that know, like, and trust with your audience, because at the end of the day, that's one of the most important things to build in your business. And that just takes time. So that's the first thing. Is it is inherently harder to build a virtual business or an online business than a brick and mortar. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, 100%.
Second truth about building an online business that no one really is talking about kind of ties in from the first one, which is longevity matters. So I mentioned that I've been online since 2005, and there's a lot of value that comes from being around for so long. Number one, you don't last at some point, if you're not doing well, like, the business is just going to stop running. Like, you're just going to disappear. And that happens everywhere, right? Online, offline, et cetera. So being online for about 16 years now I've recognized, and I tell my clients this, I'm like, the only reason I'm in a position to help you guys is because I'm still here. And just business is not a sprint to the finish line. It's like a marathon that never ends. Yeah. And having the ability to just keep running, even when you get tripped up and fall down and knock your knee and get right back up, like, that's the name of the game. And I've been through, my first 3 years online, I was making less than poverty line income. Sydney is, I would say, more expensive city than Toronto, but not that much more expensive. And I was living in Toronto on poverty line income for 3 years, building my online business from 2006 to 2009. And it's like, I just kept going, and I think, I don't know why, maybe I was too stubborn or whatever. I just had a big vision for what I wanted my life to be. But I think with anything in life, persistence is probably the most important thing. And a couple of years ago, I saw a documentary on, I don't even know what it was, to be honest, but it was talking about how our ancestors, thousands of years ago, one of the competitive advantages that allowed them to survive and keep going was endurance. So they would be able to outrun the animals that they were hunting, because animals can't sweat. So eventually they have to stop. So a cheetah can run faster, but it can't run longer than a human. Yeah. And I thought that was really fascinating, because I'm like, if that's our genetic inherent competitive advantage, let's just do the same thing with business. If you just play the game long enough, it's impossible to lose.
I love that. I'm a big believer in everything that we are doing today. If it aligns with our last 2.5 million years of evolution, then there's something in that. If it's like other end of the spectrum to that, then you're going to be pushing it uphill. It's going to be a challenge.
And it's tricky, because we all want results tomorrow, right? And then when we don't get them, as entrepreneurs, we're very creative and high ideation, and we're looking for more excitement. So we jump on the next thing. And I think one of the lessons that I've learned along the way is how to channel that need for innovation. Because in my first business, we had, I would say, easily 100 different products, whether they were actual products, supplements, info, courses, ebooks, etc. And what that meant, sorry, I don't know if you can hear my little guy, he's 2.5, doing his thing in the background there.
Awesome, love it.
But he, like, we had so much complexity in the business, and it was my inherent need to try to do new things all the time. And it was very, very challenging. And I eventually sold that business, because more or less I wanted to get out of it. After doing that for 12 years, I was like, we're good. I'm at, I've come to the final chapter there, and I never want to run a type of business again. So even though it was an online business, that business model was very complex. Hundreds, again, 100-ish products, which meant every single one had its own funnel. And you can't do 100 things amazingly well.
Yeah.
And that was a big lesson. So with HealthPreneur, when we started this in 2016, I'm like, I'm going to do one thing and that's it.
Yep.
And we have 2 programs. We have our main level coaching program and then our mastermind, and that is it. There's nothing lower. It's like, I can't give you the best of myself and my team unless it's at this level. And that's just a philosophical decision that we made as a business.
Yeah.
So I think being in the game long enough is very, very important. And it's not something that's sexy. A lot of people don't talk about it because it doesn't sell. It's like, well, you just have to keep doing this and eventually you'll crack the code. It's like, well, I don't want to keep doing this. I want the thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, you have to play the game long enough. So that's the second truth there. The third one is when you build a business online, we talked about visibility being very important. So you can't really, like in our world, we deal with health professionals. So a lot of them have clinics or gyms in some cases where people fall into their laps. They walk down the street, they're like, oh, cool chiropractor, boom. It doesn't happen online. So what that means is you have to be very proactive with your communication. You have to like actively put yourself out there so that people know you exist and then bring them in. So what that means is the number one skill you have to develop, regardless of your market, is communication. And communication in 2 forms. Number 1, written, which is known as copywriting. And number 2, verbal. So I really enjoy doing video much more than writing, but I spent a long time learning copywriting because to be able to type letters on a screen that are going to move people to action is whether it's a blog post or a social post or an ad or a landing page, you have to learn how to influence people. And that's essentially what we're talking about here is communication. And I think all great leaders are great communicators, not necessarily by birth, but by training and development over time. So whether you want to do video or audio, that's kind of the same medium of talking. And then there's writing. So I think both need to be dialed in. I'll tell you, like the most successful people that I know online have all at some level spent years learning how to write better emails, better subject lines, and I'm not saying you have to become a copywriter, but you have to learn that skill because eventually if someone else does it, you still have to speak the same language as them, right? I think a big mistake people make is they want to delegate all this stuff. And I'm all for delegation because ultimately you want to build a business where you do what you love doing and you're best at doing, and that's it. And then everyone else does their stuff. But we're not all, backed by $10 million in venture capital on day one. So we're all bootstrapping for the most part, which means you kind of have to do everything. But I think it's a blessing because you develop these skills that, you could lose all your money. You could get everything taken away from you, but no one can take your skills away.
Yep.
And the skill of being able to influence people through words or typed, whether it's now 10 years down the road, a completely different business, these are things that stay with you forever. And it's an invaluable skill set to build. So really building that number one communication, that number one skill, which is communication, supersedes everything. So when we see, like every third or fourth post on social is an ad and everyone's talking about, here's the 25 templates for high engaging social posts or create an app and do this and this, it's very overwhelming. And like, it's challenging nowadays to stay focused with the path that we're on. So I would say my encouragement would be to look at everything you're doing through the filter of where am I in my skill developments? And there's 3 tiers that I think about this through. If you're to think about a triangle or a pyramid, 3 layers. The first layer is basically from 0 until about, I would say, $250,000 in revenue. But again, that's just, they could go higher or lower, whatever. About, $250,000 in revenue. The main skill you have to build is sales and marketing, which is essentially communication, right? You have to master that because if no one's doing business with you, you don't have a business. If you can't get people to, if you can't communicate how you can solve their problem and they can't give you money, you're not in business. It's the most important skill. It's not blogging. It's not, creating TikTok videos, whatever. It's you have to learn how to influence people, which is sales and marketing. From about 250 to 500, sorry, I'd say about, again, in the range of about $500,000. The next skill that we want to build as business owners is really thinking about the business through more of an operational and process type of lens. So as your business grows, the skills that you as the leader are required to build and then eventually bring into the team change. So it's not that you just completely disregard sales and marketing. It's just you have that as a foundation. And then on top of that, now we have to think about, well, are we documenting procedures? If someone else comes into the business, how do they know how things work here? How do we do what we do? All that stuff needs to be processized into SOPs or standard operating procedures. It doesn't sound sexy, but I'll tell you this. When you create documentation around what you do, that is how you remove yourself from your business. If you ever want to have a business that creates true freedom, you have to be able to replicate yourself or your intellectual property and processes so that other people can run those without your involvement.
Yeah,
and so the simplest way of doing this,
to interject there, I mean, you've probably seen the movie The Founder. That's how McDonald's turned it from a burger shop to McDonald's. Oh,
such a great movie. Like that scene on the tennis court, I'm like, this is my jam.
Yeah.
Like, it was so fascinating because I love systems and I love thinking about how do people create systems, because a business really is a collection of systems that produces a profit for the owners, independent of the owner's involvement. So McDonald's, teenagers run the show.
Yeah.
Right. Like the owner of a franchise, like I don't think any of us ever, would meet those who knows where they are. Right. But the whole thing works because teenagers run the show based on processes that have been documented from before. It's brilliant. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the simplest way to think about that is, what are you doing more than once in your business? And the next time you do that thing, just take a moment to create a screen flow video or write, okay, first thing I do is this, and then this, and then this.
Yeah.
While you're doing it, remind yourself that every single time you do this, it's like you're giving yourself one more ticket to freedom. Right. So as tedious as it might seem in the moment, you're like, I'm doing this now, so I never have to do this later.
Yeah.
So when you bring someone on, whether it's a VA or, someone higher level, it's like, cool, you run this process. I'm not doing this anymore. And that's how you start to buy back your time. But you have to take a moment to document, how you make decisions and how you run through processes. So anyways, communication, sales and marketing, then we get into operations, and the highest level is at about $1 million in revenue plus is going to be leadership. Leadership, when I think of leadership, I think of communication. So, it's just becoming a better communicator, being able to have difficult conversations, learning how to hire, fire, lead, all that stuff. So really, I mean, the vast majority of what we're talking about here is communication. Sales and marketing is communication. Operations and systems is kind of communication, just in a more systematic way. And then leadership, again, is communication, more people to people type stuff. So does that make sense as kind of one of the most important skills?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Number 4, the fourth truth is, and this is the mistake that I made when I came online. So I was working as a trainer nutritionist for 7 years, one-on-one, 12 to 14 hours a day. And I'm like, I'm sick and tired of people. I don't want to see people anymore. I'm burnt out. I just want to go online and write an ebook and just kick my feet up and live the laptop lifestyle. That was my goal back in 2005.
Love it.
And like at the time, that was the dream. That's what everyone was talking about, right? The laptop lifestyle, passive income online. And I very quickly realized there's no passive income when it comes to building a business online.
Yeah.
There kind of is, depending on how your business is set up. But here's the reality. Like at some point, you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
Right. Like you have to build the structure, the systems, the offer, the team, whatever. That requires work. And if you set things up properly, there is a certain amount of passivity that comes in different aspects of the business. So what I mean by that right now is like in our business, I don't do any of our enrollment calls, and I haven't done so for the past 2.5, 3 years. So even though clients are enrolling, I'm not involved in that. So is that passive? Maybe. I really like it. But it's not passive because I'm still doing other things in the business. And initially I set up the foundation to build upon. So I think the idea of like, I'm going to set up a product or an ebook or a course, I'm going to sell it and everyone's going to give me all this money and I can chill is just, I think it's one of the biggest myths that I continue to see. And I see this like even in conversations with really busy health professionals. So they're practitioners, they're busy in their clinic, and they're like, I'm working on a couple courses that I want to sell online. And I'm like, hold on. Let's deconstruct that. I'm working on a couple, not one, a couple of courses that I want to sell online. If you think about like what goes into that, all right, so we have a course. You got to build a course. Okay, cool. Then you got to sell it. Let's say it's, I don't know, $300. Okay, cool. So what's the plan? You're going to put up a page with a checkout button.
Yeah.
Great. Then what? How do people get there?
Yeah.
Well, like, I don't know. I'm just going to post on Instagram and hopefully people find it. Okay, cool. How many followers do you have on Instagram? 50. Okay, great. So what's the game plan here?
Yeah.
So I don't think people understand how much work is required. People who have 1 million followers on Instagram, like that didn't happen overnight. It takes time,
It's a lot of time.
And I just think like we have to be realistic about the journey of building something great. If I have a fundamental belief that anything great is not going to be easy. Not that I don't want it to be. Like I set the intention that things flow into my life and everything works out. But the reality is like, I've got 4 boys. Raising 4 kids, wow. And I mean, my wife does the most of the heavy lifting. Is friggin' hard. Yeah. Is it worth it? 100%. If you're a female, giving birth is not easy in the slightest. Is it rewarding? Is it worth it? Probably, right? Going through school 4, 6, 10 years, that's not easy at all. Is it worth it? That's up for debate. Building a great business, like it doesn't happen like this. There's so many, I'm sure you've experienced this too. Like you're waking up at night thinking about stuff and worried, and like you have one day which is like amazing, and then like crap hits the fan, and like that's the reality, And I think early on in my business journey, I was so focused on the outcomes that I spent a lot of time in disappointments because a lot of it was on the low side, right? I was like, man, like this sucks. And then I started to fall in love with the process. So I really started to enjoy the game of business as opposed to the outcomes. And if you think about, when we set goals, like I'm going to make $1 million by this time, that is an arbitrary number at an arbitrary date and time. Yeah. That's just like we're pulling it out of the ethers, Totally. And it's like, if we don't hit that, then our happiness is dependent upon that. It's kind of crazy.
It's so funny if we can you say that. I've had a couple of people recently, like my dad or this new business coach that I have. They're like, okay, what do you want to be earning by when? And I feel like a bit of a deer in the headlights when I get asked that question. I don't know. I don't actually want to focus on some, as you say, an arbitrary number and arbitrary date. I just want to focus on what I need to do to get there. To get somewhere. Once it's started, it's snowballing a bit more, then we'll talk about that sort of stuff, but not right now.
Yeah, totally. Like I don't know about you, but I've set many goals in my life that I haven't achieved yet. Because I was just like, I'm gonna make this amount of money by this time, or I'm gonna have this outcome by then. And it's not a lot of it's not even based in reality, right? It's just like I think it's gonna manifest itself somehow. And I think that's okay to set lofty goals, but when we attach our happiness to them, that becomes an issue.
Sure.
So now it's like, cool. If we hit this goal, amazing. If we don't, is it the end of the world? Probably not, as long as we're seeing progress. Because I think for me, I don't like sitting in traffic. And the reason I don't like sitting in traffic is because there's no progress. When there's no traffic, we're moving freely. There's progress. And I think that's for me at least, and I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, progress is sometimes more important than the actual outcome. And then when you just keep going, you get the outcome anyways.
Yep.
Right. So it's just really enjoying that
Tony
process.
Robbins says progress equals happiness. And I agree, particularly in business.
So that's the fourth truth, is that there really is no passive income. You just got to put in the work, right? And I think if you do it smart, you can set things up financially where it kind of seems passive in the long run. Mm. The fifth one is, I believe the ascension model is broken. So the ascension model being like lead magnet, $7 tripwire, $47 upsell, $97 upsell, eventually. So I say this in full honesty because my first business, which was, again, to the consumer, health, fitness related stuff, very high volume, low touch. So a lot of our stuff was in the neighborhood of, those $5 offers to several hundred type of price points. And every single one of our funnels was built on that. So get them in for a couple bucks, upsell them. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back on this was we did a free plus shipping cookbook a number of years ago, and we were split testing 9 different upsell flow pathways.
Wow.
So logistically, it was a lot of fun. Not really. 9 different upsell flows, right?
Right.
And each one had a possible 3 to 4 different upsells. So the combinations were just crazy. We had like a friggin' quant NASA scientist guy looking at all of the metrics. Because I'm like, I'm not going to make sense of this stuff. And the whole goal of all that was to move the average cart value from $21 to $24. Yeah. I was like, well, what game am I playing here? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we've been doing stuff like that for years. So like when I say this, I'm saying like I had done the whole ascension model forever, right? Mm-hmm. And so with HealthPreneur, I said, no, I'm going to go right to the top and I'm going to offer the best solution. Because when it's like if someone came to you with a headache and you're like, you know what? I'll give you a quarter of a Tylenol. Yeah. But if you want the full thing, you got to get the upsell. And it's like people come to you with
analogy.
They come to you with a problem. They want the solution to the problem, not a quarter of the solution. And that's fundamentally my issue with the ascension model. And I understand, playing devil's advocate, I understand, well, not everyone can pay that amount of money. So you have to kind of, give them something and eventually they'll whatever. But listen, like what I've recognized is that the more people pay, the more they pay attention. And if someone pays you $5, that's a very different caliber of client than someone who pays you 5,000. Yeah. So for us, our goal is to transform our clients. It's not just to transact with them. And if transformation is our top priority, then we have to look at, well, what does that involve? Like how much support, coaching, et cetera, is required? Okay, cool. Well, we can't offer anything for $7, and we understand that we're going to turn away 90% of our market. But you know what? That's okay, because the complexity that would be added to the business by having all these lower end offers is just immense. So our whole philosophy is we provide the best possible solution based on the problem we know we can solve for our market, and everything else is free.
Yep.
So like it's free. Read it, watch it, take action on as much stuff as you possibly can. If you never do business with us, that is totally fine. At some point in the future, if you do, that's amazing too. Yep. But in the meantime, here's all the stuff for free, which we can give away because we don't have to worry about making ends meet because we're charging $50 down here. Yeah. So I think the whole ascension model, I think it's overplayed. It adds way too much complication to the business. And I say, like, if you've got people that have a problem, just give them the full solution and charge accordingly for that. It just makes life so much easier for you and better for your clients. So that's the 5th truth about building an online business that I don't think a lot of people talk about. So there you go.
I can imagine with that model too, but by the time, someone has been consuming your content and all the stuff that you're giving for free, and they are ready to take that step, that is like a fantastic client. They're the sorts of people you really want to work with because they know you, they like you, they trust you. It's taken quite a few touch points to get them to that high ticket offer, so to speak. But by the time they're doing it, they're in.
Yeah, for sure.
And can you, speaking of, can you give us I'll have it flashing up on the screen right now, but tell us a little bit more about your accelerator. I know there are 2 main products that you offer, the Health Business Accelerator and also the Luminaires Mastermind. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown on that?
Yep. So the first one, we call it HBA because it just shorter. It's basically solving the acquisition problem and the delivery problem. So specifically for health professionals, because that's our target audience. And if they don't have a predictable system for bringing clients in a more automated, predictable way, there's a 4-step pipeline we help them build out that we do with all of our clients, so they can get them in more consistently without having to spend all day on social media or creating content no one sees. Mm-hmm. And then on the end, instead of doing all their coaching in a one-to-one fashion, we help them build a bit more of a scalable coaching model that allows them to serve more people without trading time for money and burning out. So that's the initial HBA program. Mm-hmm. And then our Luminaries Masterminds for clients that have gone through our HBA program, who are doing 6 figures, who now want to get to 7. And now they run into the next issue, kind of in that triangle of like operational team efficiency processes. And now they want to really build a real business that's not just them doing everything themselves. Yeah. But so those are the 2 core programs. Again, they're specific for health professionals, but if you have, viewers or listeners to this who are not health professionals, I've got a great book on Amazon, which is a whopping 99 cents, called Mind Floss. Right. And if you're like most entrepreneurs, keeping this guy fresh and strong up here is a big deal. You can grab it for, again, in Australia, it'd be $1 or something. I don't know. But it's a great book called Mind Floss on Amazon. Cool. And it's a great read. So it's just a really good reminder for, keeping this strong so you can enjoy the benefits that a strong mind produces in all aspects of your business and life. So yeah.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. And we've got your website linked down below in the description. That's where people can find you, connect with you, find your content, find your programs. Yuri, thank you so much for the 5 myths about starting an online business or online business that no one will tell you about. I really appreciate your time. And thank you. Yeah, have a fantastic rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rowan. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Yuri. Bye.